Section 27 of Tribal Customs and Anglo-Saxon Law. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Claire. Tribal Custom and Anglo-Saxon Law by Frederic Seebohm. Chapter 12. Anglo-Saxon Custom from the Viking or Northman's Point of View. 1. The compact between King Alfred and Guthrum, A.D. 886. At the date of the compact between Ethelred II and Olaf Tryggvason, more than a century had passed since the earlier compact between Alfred and Guthrum, and during that century the successors of Alfred had gradually succeeded in recovering their hold upon the English nation. During the whole of this time, following continental tribal usage, both English and Danes had presumably lived under their own laws and customs. But whether it be right to speak of the Northmen of the time of King Alfred as Danes or not, it is necessary to distinguish the difference between the two invasions. Cnut's invasion was avowedly intended to establish a kingdom, or rather to bring England within the area of his great Danish kingdom. Olaf was on the point of making himself King of Norway, and the founding of kingdoms was, so to speak, in the air. It was an era of conquest, and Cnut's invasion of England was in fact the first step towards the Norman conquest. The Vikings, who invaded England in the days of Alfred, on the other hand, were independent chieftains, the last of the class of the early Frankish and Anglo-Saxon type. Their invasion was not a Danish invasion in the sense that it came from a Danish kingdom. The Vikings of this earlier period were chieftains of moving armies living upon the country they invaded. Their armies were composed of Northmen, and again, to quote the words of Mr. Keary in the History of the Scandinavian Nations, they were the representatives in the countries of their origin of a bygone or passing order of things, the opponents of the extended sort of kingship, which was the new order of the day in Denmark, Sweden, and Norway. Let us for a moment follow the course of the movements of these Viking armies which preceded the compact between Alfred and Guthrum. In 867 the army was in the north, took possession of York, and subdued Northumbria. In 868 Mercia was invaded. Until 871 the incursions were practically confined to Northumbria and Mercia, and parts of East Anglia. In 871 the invasion of Wessex commenced, and in the same year Alfred, on the death of his brother Ethelred, became King of Wessex. In 874 the army was again chiefly in Mercia and Northumbria, and began definitely to settle in the latter. The southern half of Northumbria became the Kingdom of York under Halfdan, A.D. 876. The other part of the army, under Guthrum, proceeded to attack Wessex, and the winter of 877–8 was marked by the retirement of Alfred into the island of Eithne. In 878 came the victory of Eithudun, which was followed by the baptism of Guthrum and the partition of England. In 880 Guthrum and his army settled in what became the Danegla. And in 886 the final compact was entered into between Alfred and Guthrum, the text of which has been preserved. It will be convenient first to consider this compact, and then the various fragments of Northumbrian and Mercian law, the production or preservation of which may be traced to this period. The text of the compact is preserved in the 10th century manuscript B. Its first clause defines the boundaries between that part of England which was to remain English and the Daneglia. With this matter, at the moment, we are not specially concerned. Then follows the most material clause, 2. And high quaidon gif mon off slagen, worth, il we late effen diern, Inglesine et Denisine, eth is 2, 8, helf Markham, asondes gold, Booten, Tham, Seoral, The, on Gauful land, sit et Eora, Lysingen, Thasinden, ec effen dir, Eorgrith twa hund seal, and gif man singe, Thigen, Beto man, Slithas, et he hein Ladian dur he the mid 12, singe, Thingus, et gif mon, thone man, betathone, the, beth lysa maga, lidi hein, 11 his, Galicia, et annam, singes, Thigen. And they ordained if a man should be slain, we estimate all equally dear, English and Danish, i.e., at 8 half-marks of pure gold, except the ceorl, who sits on Gauful land, and there the Danish lysings, they also are equally dear, either at 200 shillings. And if a man accuse a king's thane of manslaying, and he dare to clear himself, let him do that with the 12 king's thanes, and if any one accuse that man who is of less degree, let him clear himself with 11 of his equals, and with 1 king's thane. Now, in the first place, it is evident that this text describes the weregeld of 2 classes or ranks of persons. Dane and Englishmen of the first class are to be held equally dear at 8 half-marks of pure gold. The other class embraces the Saxon ceorl, who sits on Gauful land, and the Danish lysing. These also are equally dear at 200 shillings. Let us look at these 2 classes separately. The first class of Dane and English men, without other definition, are to be paid for by 8 half-marks of gold. The money is Danish. 8 half-marks contained 32 oars. And this, as we have seen, at the Norse ratio of 1 to 8, was the same thing as 32 marks of silver. The weregeld of the hald of the Gulthing law we found to be most probably 30 marks of silver. The Danish man of this clause thus seems to be represented in Norse law by the hald. In other words, Guthrum, from his point of view, took the hald as the typical freeman, just as we found him so taken in the Gulthing law. It will be remembered that this weregeld of the hald was equated with 96 cows, and that in its gold value reckoned in wheat grains is amounted to 200 Merovingian gold solidi. From the English point of view, it was not far otherwise. The 12 hindmen, with a weregeld of 1,200 shillings, was evidently the typical freeman Alfred had in view. 1,200 Mercian shillings of 4 pence, i.e. 4,800 pence at the Norse ratio of 1 to 8, equaled 600 gold tremisses or 200 gold solidi. 1,200 Wessex shillings of 5 pence at a ratio of 1 to 10 would also equal 200 gold solidi. The equation was therefore well within the range of reasonable compromise, and behind both these weregelds, that of the hald and that of the 12 hindmen, there seems to be the curious traditional, conscious or unconscious, reference so often repeated to the ancient normal weregeld of 200 gold solidi and the heavy gold mina. At this normal weregeld, Dane and Englishmen were to be held equally dear. Turning now to the other class, the weregeld is described in English shillings, and the weregeld is that of the 2 hindmen, 200 shillings, i.e. 1/6 of the weregeld of the other class. On the Danish side, the equivalent of 2 hindmen was the lysing, i.e. the lysing or newly made freeman of the Gulthing law, who had not yet made his freedom ale, and whose weregold was 1/6 of that of the hald, according to his ret. Here again the correspondence is complete. The English 2 hindmen is put by this compact on the same standing as to the weregeld as the Norse lysing, or newly made freeman, who had not yet made his freedom ale. But we gain another point from this remarkable clause. We are warned by it not to be drawn too easily into a rash generalization from the use of the Saxon word ceorl. It is not the ceorl as such who is the 2 hindmen, and put upon the same social level as the Danish lysing. It is clearly only the ceorl who sits on Gauful land. It is on the last words that the distinctive emphasis must be put. If we had nothing but this clause to guide us, we might conclude that all above the ceorl who sits on the Gauful land were 12 hind. 2. The course of procedure in payment of weregeld. There are 2 statements of the course of procedure in the payment of weregelds which may conveniently be mentioned at this point. The first occurs in the laws of King Edmund, who reigned A.D. 940 to 946, and the other is contained in a fragment belonging probably to the time following soon after the compact between Alfred and Guthrum. King Edmund, in order to abate the manifold fightings resulting from the system of feud and weregeld, made stringent regulations under which weregelds were to be claimed, making it voluntary on the part of the kindred to join in payment of the weregeld. Gif wa hanen forth, eining man offslay, thihi weeg sylf, thafehoth, Bhutan he hath mid, Freonda, feistel binnen 12th monthum, forgild, befullen, where, si swa, boren, swa, he see, gifhein, thone, say, megaeth, forlate, and him forgilden, nellen, thonen, will, ecthal, say, megaeth, si unfa, buten, tham, hand, datum, gif hi him, sibben, ni, duth, meet, nemund, gif thone, sibben, whilk his magna hein, fiormage, thone, bay, he, skildig, eels, thace, be he, age, with, thone, signing, et, weege, ba, fahoth, with, ba, magoth, forbum, hi, hein, forsken, air, gif, bone of, bear, uth, magoth, thwa, phrase, do on, angium, orthum, men, bhutan, on, bam, rith, handaiden, saihi, gefa, with, bone, signing, et, with, eel, his friend, and, polage, eelis, bice, be he age, gif, wa, sirkin, Gierski, Othemine, Bur, et hein man, bear, sec opth, iflige, ba bay, de, sin, bear, eelkin, skilditch, behet, her, beforen, swaith, and ik nelly ith anig, fight with, opth man boat, forgiveth sigh. Edmund's Secular Laws, Section 1. If any one henceforth slay any man, that he himself bear the feud, unless with the aid of his friends, and within 12 months he compensate it with the full wear, be he born as he may be. But if his mage forsake him, and will not pay for him, then I will that all the kindred be unfey, free from the feud, except the perpetrator, if afterwards they do not give him either food or mund, protection. But if any one of his kindred feed him, then be he liable in all that he possesses to the king, and bear the feud with the kindred, because they had previously forsaken him. But if any one of the other kindred take vengeance upon any other man, then the real perpetrator, let him be foe to the king and to all his friends, and forfeit all he owns. 2. If any one take refuge in a church or in my burh, and one there seek him or do him evil, be those who do that liable in the same that is heretofore ordained. 3. And I will not that any fight white or manbot be forgiven. This relaxation of the rules as to payment of wehrgeld seems to leave matters very much as they were, with the one exception that for the sake of peace and to lessen the risk of manifold fightings, a year was given to the slayer's kindred to save his life by helping him to pay the wehrgeld if they chose, while if they chose to forsake him and did not harbor or help him in any way, they were free. The kindred of the slain in the meantime were left to pursue their feud, but only upon the slayer. This, of course, was another instance of the partial breaking down of the ancient tribal solidarity of the kindred in favor of the principle, long before adopted in some of the continental codes, limiting the punishment of crime to the criminal himself. Whether this innovation of King Edmund's was adhered to the evidence of the laws of Henry I may lead us to doubt, but for our purpose the law making the innovation is evidence of the ancient solidarity of the kindred, the attempt to loosen which had become necessary in the 10th century. A clause which follows shows that it was expected that wehrgelds would still be paid. Witten, Skylan, Faith, Setten, Erest, after, Folkright, Slaga, Skeel, his, Forspekken, on hand, Seelen, et se Forspekka magnum, se Slaga, Wheel betten, with, Meguth, Bonnie Sibben, Gibred, the man, Sille, Bice, Slagen, Forspekken, on hand, Theslega, Mot mid, Grith, near, et self wears, Wedian. Done he, bais bewoted, habe, bone fiend he, perto, werbor, bone, the gilden, Seebohm, rare man, synergies, Monday of, Bam Digi on 21 night guild, man, heelsfang, buys on 21 night manboat, buys on 21 night buys, where thumfrum guild. 7. The witan shall appease feuds. First, according to the folkright, the slayer shall give pledge to his forspecka, and the forspecka to the kindred that the slayer will make bot to the kindred. Then, after that, it is requisite that security be given to the slayer's forspecka, that the slayer may in peace come near and himself give wed for the weir. When he has given wed for this, let him find thereto a werebow. When that is done, let the king's mund be levied. Within 21 days from that day, let the halfsving be paid. 21 days from that, the manbot. 21 days from that, the frumgeld of the weir. The further course of procedure is best given in the earlier fragment alluded to. The fragment is headed, How a 12 hindman shall be paid for. It opens with the statement, A 12 hindman's weir is 1200 shillings. A 2 hindman's weir is 200 shillings, and then it proceeds. Gifman afslagen, weareth gild hein, man swahi geboren sei. And writ is the sea slaga sibben he wears bewadded, habe finde parto wereborn be pombe perto gibring. Thisat 12 hindum were gibrio, 12 men to Wereborg, 8 Ferden Megeth, 4 Medrin Megeth. If any one be slain, let him be paid for according to his birth. And it is right that the slayer, after he has been given wed for the were, find in addition a werebow according as shall thereto belong. That is, to a 12 hinds weir 12 men are necessary as werebow, 8 of the paternal kin and 4 of the maternal kin. This is in accordance with the clause in Alfred and Guthrum's compact, which, however, makes the additional provision by way of precaution that one of the 12 co-swearers must be a king's thane. The clause continues, Doni thigedon sibane rare man synerges Monday. This thai ile gamamum handum of Igorith Megorth on enum weepin sam samande silin thasinages mund stand. When this is done, then let the king's mund be established, that is, that they all of either kindred, with their hands in common upon one weapon, engage to the mediator that the king's mund shall stand. The king's mund bird, as we have seen, was equal to 5 pounds according to both English and Kentish custom. Of them dig on 21 nighten guild, man 70 shilling, to Heelsfang eit 12 hindum were. Heelsfang, Gimbreth, Bairnum, Bruthdom, et Feardum ne Gabreth, Nanum, Maige, the Foy, Boot, Tham, Si, Binnen, Tanow. Of Tham Derge be Thoheels Fang a golden sigh on 21 nighten guild, man, the manbot, thighs on 21 nighten, the fire white, thighs on 21 nighten, thigh swears, the frim guild, at swa fourth, the full golden sigh on tham first be witten Gerarden, Shibben man mot mid loof ofgen gif man wheel fully fredondondre haben. Il man skill at cerilsum were be bear marth done be him to Jebraith swa we be 12 hindum tilden. In 21 days from the day, let 70 shillings be paid as Heelsfang at 12 hinds ware. Heelsfang belongs to the children, brothers, and paternal uncles. That money belongs to no kinsman except to those that be within the knee. In 21 days from the day that the Heelsfang is paid, let the manbot be paid. In 21 days from this, the fight white. In 21 days from this, the frumgild of the ware, and so forth till it be fully paid, within the time that the witan have appointed. After this they may depart with love if they desire to have full friendship. All men shall do with regard to the wear of a cereal that which belongs to his condition, like as we have said about a 12 hindman. These steps in the procedure are very nearly the same as those quoted in the so-called Laws of Henry I, and these clauses may probably be looked upon as more or less repeating for the benefit of both peoples what Anglo-Saxon custom may have been before the Viking invasions of England, but of this we cannot be certain. 3. Fragments of Mercian and the North People's Law. We now have to consider a group of fragments of uncertain date which seem to belong to the period of the Northmen's settlement in Northumbria and invasions in Mercia. The settlement of the Viking invaders made it necessary to fix the relation of their weregelds to those of the conquered English, and also to gather up fragments of Mercian custom. As the dooms of Mercian kings have not come down to us, these fragments have a special value. The importance of Mercia in King Offa's time gives a special interest to any information on Mercian custom, and in other respects, scanty though it be, the retrospect of early Anglo-Saxon custom from the invader's point of view could ill be spared. There are 2 valuable fragments on Mercian law. The first as follows. B. Mercian Oath. 12 hinds mans elforsent. 6 Seorla e Forbum gif man, thon 12th Heiden man, recan scald he bith, full reckon on 6 Seorlan et his weergeld bith 6 Seorlan weergeld. Of the Mercian oath. A 12 hindman's oath stands for 6 ceorls oaths, because if a man should avenge a 12 hindman, he will be fully avenged on 6 ceorls, and his weergeld will be 6 ceorls weergelds. This fragment of Mercian law is preceded in the group of fragments on oaths in Thorpe's edition of the laws by the following, which may or may not be of Mercian origin. Masse praetos ath et worldren thegans es on Ingla laga, gelten effen dire et for sam safen circ hadden, si masse pres bur goids gif gebas, the hiath he bith pagan wraith wyth. A mass priest's oath and a secular thane's are in English law reckoned of equal value, and by reason of the 7 church degrees that the mass priest, through the grace of God, has acquired, he is worthy of thane right. The other fragment of Mercian law is as follows. Seorlus weergeld is on Mersna lag 100 seal. Dennis weergeld is 6 swa, minsel thobith 12 hund seal. Donebith singes anfeld weergeld 6 thegna weer be Mersna lag thith is 30 busend skita et thobith eels 70 punda. Swamesiel is thus weergeld on Folsies folkrights B Mersna lag, and for tham Sindom Gerborth Orth Swilk to boat on Seingild, Sewer Gibrath Magum et Seo Sein bot tham Leodum. A ceorl's weergeld is by Mercian law 200 shillings. A thane's weergeld is 6 times as much, i.e. 1200 shillings. Then is a king's simple weergeld 6 thanes were by Mercian law, i.e. 30,000 Scots, and that is altogether 120 pounds. So much is the weergeld in the people's folkright by Mercian law, and for the signdom there is due another such sum as bot for Seingild. The were belongs to the kindred and the signbot to the people. The Mercian weergeld of both 2 hind and 12 hindmen is thus stated in shillings as usual, and the king's weergeld 6 times the thane's would equal 7,200 shillings. The Mercian shilling was 4 pence, and thus, as stated in the text, the king's weergeld would equal exactly 120 pounds, or 28,800 pence or Scots. in round numbers 30,000 Scots. This is useful as evidence that the Scot of this Mercian weregild was a silver penny of the Anglo-Saxon currency of 28 to 8 wheat grains, i.e., of the Scot series, before Offa and Alfred, following the examples of Charlemagne, superseded the Scot by the penny of 32 wheat grains. The fragments printed by Thorpe under the heading North People's Law and by Schmidt in his Anhang 7 seem to belong to Northumbria, or more generally to the Danelaga. Schmid suggests that the North people were the North folk of East Anglia. This, however, is perhaps more than doubtful, especially when it is considered that the Viking armies had established themselves not only in East Anglia and Mercia, but still more completely in Northumbria many years before the struggle with Wessex had ended in the compact between Alfred and Guthrum. The fragment of the North People's Law opens with a statement that the King's Guild is 30,000 thorismas, 15,000 for the weregild and 15,000 for the people, leodum. In another manuscript, the wording follows the statement of Mercian law very closely and agrees with the above in describing the amount in thorismas. Dice synergies weregild sai mid ingla sign on folkright pritig pusend prisma et bere 15 sign bas wears et uthra 15 bais sindums se were belempath 2 bais migath bais sign sins et thasignbot to sam land leod. Let the king's weregild be with the English race by folkright, 30,000 thorismas, and of these let 15,000 be for the weir and the other 15,000 for the signdom. The weir belongs to the kindred of the king and the signbot to the people. Now, in the first place, what was the thorisma, which occurs in these clauses for the first time? A statement a little further on in one of the two texts of the same fragment fixes the value of the thorisma at 3 pence. The statement of the North People's Law proceeds as follows. Arses et Aerolingus weregild is 15 pusend prismund, biscops et aldornmans 8 pusend prisma, holdus eth singus hyth geifen 4 thousand thorisma, mais thagan et world thenes 2,000 thorisma. Seors weregild is 100 et 66 thrim, bith 200 skill be mersna lage. 2. An archbishop's and an atheling's weregild is 15,000 thorismas. 3. A bishop and an alderman's 8,000 thorismas. 4. A hold's and a king's high reeves 4,000 thorismas. 5. A mass thanes and a secular thanes 2,000 thorismas. 6. A cereal's weregild is 200 and 66 thorismas, that is 200 shillings by Mercian law. Put into tabular form, these weregilds would be as follows in thorismas and Wessex and Mercian shillings. Table: 6 rows by 4 columns. Column 1, weregild. Column 2, thorismas amount. Column 3, Wessex shillings of 5 pence amount. Column 4, Mercian shillings of 4 pence amount. Row 1, King's weregild 15,000, signbot 15,000. 30,000 thorismas. 18,000 Wessex shillings of 5 pence. 22,500 Mercian shillings of 4 pence. Row 2, Archbishops and Athelings, 15,000 thorismas. 9,000 Wessex shillings of 5 pence, 11,250 Mercian shillings of 4 pence. Row 3, Bishop and Edelmans, 8,000 thorismas. 4,800 Wessex shillings of 5 pence, 6,000 Mercian shillings of 4 pence. Row 4, Holders and King's High Reeves, 4,000 thorismas. 2,400 Wessex shillings of 5 pence, 3,000 Mercian shillings of 4 pence. Row 5. Mass thanes and secular thanes. 2,000 thrymases. 1,200 Wessex shillings of 5 pence. 1,500 Mercian shillings of 4 pence. Row 6. Seorls. 266 2/3 thrymases. 160 Wessex shillings of 5 pence. 200 Mercian shillings of 4 pence. End of table. The seorl has a twine-hide weregold and Mercian shillings, and the thane a 12-hind weregold and Wessex shillings. There seems to be so far some confusion, but on the whole this reckoning seems to justify the opinion generally held that the Northmen, coming as conquerors into Northumbria, or the Danelaga, had, at the date of these fragments, doubled the weregold of the hold or hald, as compared with that of the English thane. If, as all seems reasonable, these fragments may be referred to the period following upon the Viking conquest and settlement in Northumbria and the foundation of Halfdan's kingdom of York, A.D. 876, then the doubled weregold of the hald may be perhaps the high watermark, as it were, of the invasion, the point of vantage at which it was natural for the conquerors to treat the conquered as a tributary race. And if it may rightly be so regarded, then it gives an added interest to the compact between King Alfred and Guthrum in 886. For then, the tide of the battle having turned, the two kings at length met on equal terms, and, undoing the earlier unequal settlement, now agreed to make Dane and Englishman equally dear. A still more interesting point than the doubling of the conquering hold's weregold, as compared with the conquered thanes, is found in the subsequent clauses of this fragment, which seems to refer back to ancient traditions as regards the position of the non-Saxon subjects of Anglo-Saxon kings. And gif wilskmen gebbeth the habeth whisk lands et maj singe gaufel forthbringen thone bith his weregold 120 skill, and gif he negatho buten to helfni hid thone says his were 70 shill, and gif he ein land nepth et the freeth sid for gild hein man mid 70 shill. 7. And if a Willicksman thrive so that he have whisk lands and can bring forth the king's gaufel, then his weregold shall be 120 shillings. And if he only comes up to a half hide, then shall his ware be 80 shillings. And if he have not any land and yet be free, let him be paid for with 70 shillings. The other version is practically the same. En Welsik mans weergeld gif he be to them gewelden, the hyrid et age et tham sing gaufel gilden, mig hit bith bone 220 shilling, and he ne bith buten to hif hide gearson thone sai his weir 80 shilling. Gif he land naib ac bith fraith gild moan 70 shilling. 7. And a Welsix man weregold, if he be so enriched that he has family and goods, hired in it, and can pay the king's gaufel, shall be 220 shillings, and if he be risen but to half a hide, then shall his own ware be 80 shillings. 8. If he has no land but is free, let him be paid for with 70 shillings. Now, Hausk and Hide both seem to mean family. In a roundabout, indirect way, familia and hide meant apparently very much the same thing, but as the word hide is used in the same clause, the more direct meaning may surely, in this case, be the more important one. It is probable that these clauses are variations or fuller expressions of the tradition described in Chapter 32 of King Ein's Laws, which is as follows. Gift Wilsik man habe hide loans his weir bith 120 shilling, gif he thine hab hilf 80 shilling, gif he nine habeth 60 shilling. If a Wilsic man have a hide of land, his ware shall be 120 shillings, but if he have half a hide, 80 shillings, if he have none, 60 shillings. and the additional information amounts practically to this, that the possession of a hide seems to have been held generally equivalent to the possession of a family homestead, family and goods, enabling a man to pay the king's gallful. It is when we pass on from these clauses to the next that fresh and welcome light seems to be gained upon the connection of the growth of a family in kindred with rise in status and social rank from a seralsic or 2-hind position to that of a gestkund or 12-hind position. We are now no longer dealing with the wilsic man, but with the ordinary twin-hide seral, and the mention of the payments in Thrymus reminds us that we are still looking at things from the North people's point of view. The clauses in the two versions are as follows. 9. And give Silorsic man gith et he habeth 5 hind lands to Cygnus utware, at hein man offsly for gild man hein mid twam thousand thesma. 10. And he getheth he habeth helm et birnam et gold fated sweard, give he the land naufeth hebeth seral swa theme. 11. And give his sunu et his sunu the gibithu he swa misil lands haben sibben bith say offspring gisunth sins betwam thousandum. 12. And give he Thnaboth ni to them Gebeth ni magan gild men Cersli. 9. Give Cyril C. Geweld to Tham he age 5 hydra lands eat mon hein offs gild hein mon mid 2 thrisma. 10. And give he begato thee habeth björn et helm et offergilden sveard thur thee he nand nabeth hebith secund. 11. And give he sunu e Saus soon thous begotten thee swa miso lands habeth sneen hiora after ging pas secunda sins e gild tham mon mid thismas. And they may be translated thus. 9. And if a churlish man thrive so that he have 5 hides of land to the king's upware, and any one slay him, let him be paid for with 2,000 thrymuses. 9. If a cereal be enriched to that degree that he have 5 hides of land to the king's upware, and any one slay him, let him be paid for with 2,000 thrymuses. 10. And though he thrive so that he have a helm and coat of mail, and a sword ornamented with gold, if he have not that land, he is nevertheless a cereal. 10. And if he acquire so that he have a coat of mail, and a helmet, and an overgilded sword, if he have not that land, he is sithkund. 11. And if his son and his son's son so thrive that they have so much land, afterwards the offspring shall be of Geistkund race at 2,000 thrymuses. 11. And if his son and the son's son acquire that they have so much land, let their successors be of the Sithkund kin, and let them be paid for it with 2,000 thrymuses. 12. And if they have not that, nor to that can thrive, let them be paid as Corlish. These passages are very important as the most direct evidence we possess of the way in which under early Anglo-Saxon custom families became Geistkund by the gradual growth of a kindred whose kinsmen, like the Odelmen of the Norse laws, could reckon 4 generations in succession of sufficient land holding. The evidence is all the more interesting because it seems to come from the point of view of the Norse or Danish invaders, making inquiry respecting English tradition and recording what had once been the custom of the conquered districts. The same remark applies equally to another of these valuable fragments, of people's ranks and law. It, too, seems to look back and to record what once had been the custom of the conquered people. Hitwise wheelum on Ingla lagum, Tholoid it lagu for be Gethinko Kuthum, et la werin beod witten, weroth skypes, worth elk be his merth, erl et serl, began et bergen. 1. It was whilom in the laws of the English that people and law went by ranks, and then were the witten of worship worthy, each according to his condition, erl and serl, thegan and theoden. These are the phrases of a writer looking back with regret upon ancient custom, which to him is past or passing away. After this following clauses, in one of which the word hydra and the phrase having so many hides to the king's upwear again occur, words that seem to suggest that this fragment, while describing ancient English custom, hails from a somewhat similar source as the North People's Law. And gif Cyril giveth et he helft fullus fifth hirda Agnes lands, circin et kiersenen, belshus et birgut, settle e sundernut on Cygnus heel, thones was he, thonen foroth, begin right, worthy. And if a Cyril thrived so that he had fully 5 hides of his own land, church and kitchen, bell house and burgate, seat and special duty in the king's hall, then was he thenceforth of thane right worthy. This seems to be practically identical with clause 9 of the previous fragment. Then follows, and gif begin girben et he benode singe et his rad staff rad on his hirde, gif he bonne hafte begin be him filidi, be to singus ut where, fifth haida hafte et on singus, selle his helford, benode e birwa, mid, his ernde, gifor to singe semosta sibben mid his foreth, his helford, asperlin et miskelton neoden, et his on spears gierkin, mid right swa where swa he scalode, et seb swa gilbone forthwith, and naphid swore for sealn after his right ups his Polanded, and gif began girbed thewerth to erl thurn where's he sibben earlwraith worthy. And if a thane thrived so that he served the king, and on his summons, rad Stephanie, rode with his household, hirde, if he then had a thane who him followed, who to the king's upwear 5 hides had, and in the king's hall served his lord, the thane, and thrice with his errand went to the king, he might thenceforth with his fore-oath his lord represent various needs, and his plaint lawfully conduct wherever he ought. 4. And he who so prosperous a vicegerent had not swore for himself according to his right, or it forfeited. 5. And if a thane thrived so that he became an earl, then was he thenceforth of earl right worthy. These passages we shall have to consider further when we sum up the evidence against the Anglo-Saxon division of classes. But there are 2 peculiarities which may be marked here as pointing to the archaic character of these precious fragments. First, the alliteration and rhythmical character of some of them, which points to an early and traditional origin, and secondly, the direct relations of the classes mentioned to the king. The Wilsic man has to bring forth the king's galful. The Cyril, who has 5 hides, has them to the king's upwear, and he becomes gaiskun and thane right worthy, with special duty in the king's hall, while the thane is all the greater when he has a thane under him, who has himself 5 hides to the king's upwear, and goes with his errands to the king. These are marks of direct relationship and service of the Gaiskund classes to the king, to which we shall have to recur. They seem to point to the Gaiskund class with its completeness of kindred as a privileged class in a semi-official position, and from which the king's officials were chosen. It is not until this relationship by service to the king has become established that a Cyril finds an entrance into the Gaiskund class, and he does not become eligible for such service till he is surrounded by an adequate kindred. In the meantime, we may be thankful to the exigencies of the Viking invasions for the preservation of these valuable fragments of ancient custom which might otherwise have been lost. End of section 27.